Copyright laws and schools. I'm Dana Delaney. And I don't know where my picture went. There we go. So today's discussion will be about copyright laws, how those apply to schools, how it impacts school leadership, faculty and staff, and then moving forward, what we can do about it. This quote I found was pretty interesting by Maximilian de Generis, and it says, just in case you can't read cursive, it says, a brainy person does not abuse copyright. Instead, they respect and uphold it. So what is a copyright law? In simple terms, according to Wikipedia, copyright is a law that gives the owner of a work, for example, a book, a movie, picture, song, website, software, CD, the right to say how other people can use it. Copyright laws make it easy for authors to make money by selling their works. With copyright, a work can only be copied if the owner gives permission. So do schools have to follow copyright laws? Of course, yes, they do. But there are some perks to being part of a school. And according to the haldavison.net, copyright has a fair use guidelines for teachers. And the law grants specific privileges to teachers that says that they can be used for educational purposes. It's called a fair use clause, which is kind of hard to decipher, but on the website haldavison.net, there's a really tiny, take your magnifying glass with you to read it. If you look at our textbook, the textbook's very tiny, but break it down using our case study as the example. Well, let me just back up here a second. The reason it's important to follow the copyright law is because basically we won't let our students get away with infringing on plagiarism. We need to make sure that we're not stealing other people's work as well. So it's just as bad if a teacher does it as it is if a student does it. So a couple of examples for software, according to the fair use guidelines, is that only one machine at a time may use a software. And if you need to use more than one copy at a time, then you would need a network license in order to be able to upload it on your network and let more than one machine use it at once. Also, the number of users must be equal to or less than the number of licenses. And the only exception for copying a disk is for archival purposes or to replace a damaged disk that's no longer available. Do you guys remember Napster? So let's see here. So the case study in real life, in the case study, a new teacher is the one who sounded the alarm that copyright laws were being broken by the librarian and the teachers. But this could be real life. Many people do not view copying CDs as illegal, but do you remember Napster? Does that name ring a bell? The librarian stated that their school was too remote and small to get caught, and who would be paying attention to them if they're copying CDs. But Napster had their lawyers go after individual people because they broke the copyright laws and illegally downloaded or shared music that they didn't pay for. Being small or remote was not a defense against prosecution, and it wasn't a cushion or a safety net either. So what should a school do? Basically, a school needs to establish clear guidelines and have a policy in place. School leadership should take a hard line on copyright infringement and the copyright laws. A student committing plagiarism is just as wrong as a librarian copying software CDs. The school board needs to establish a clear and concise policy surrounding technology use. Secondly, there needs to be established consequences for ignoring the laws. The copyright policy needs to have clear consequences listed for all to see. For example, Columbia University's Teacher College has a policy for students where the first offense is a loss of network access, and then they have to prove that they removed all of the copied software and things from their device. The second offense is a trip to the office of the provost, but then the third offense is more serious, and it involves a permanent loss of network access as well as permanent loss of campus housing. There are also civil and criminal consequences for violation of copyright laws up to $150,000. It's pretty significant. I'm not sure many teachers could easily pay that. And this is an example at a university of their student policy, but similarly, a K-12 school needs to have a very specific and defined policy outlining consequences for teachers and staff alike. And thirdly, resources. They're still an issue for most schools. So school leadership needs to lay down the law that breaking the laws that we don't like or that aren't convenient is a terrible message to send to our students. We're supposed to be growing leaders, and therefore we need to lead by example. And leadership needs to encourage faculty and parents to be legally resourceful and creative, but also teach the lesson that not all good things happen overnight. And delayed gratification is not a bad thing. So while teaching using technology is awesome to have access to, trained teachers should still know how to teach without technology and use what they have creatively, but also to work on knuckling down to solve the problem. So moving forward, and to recap, the school board and leadership must develop a clear policy surrounding the use and distribution of digital resources. Step 2, the school leader has to lead by example, but also must communicate expectations and be a visionary planner with a shared vision for technology use in the school, and then engage stakeholders in creative problem solving to help further stretch the resources that the school has, as well as put their thinking caps on for ways to increase those resources. But get everyone involved. Brief the staff and the faculty, get the PTA board, and have a working session. Just get everybody involved, and then put together a proposal for execution, and then put it into place. That's the case study that we looked at. Happens probably every school year in countless schools across the country, but we can be leaders with integrity and not allow it to happen. So the ISTE standard that applies to this is to be a visionary planner, build on the shared vision by collaboratively creating a strategic plan that articulates how technology will be used to enhance learning.